Hi, welcome to PERSINT, personality-based open source intelligence gathering, an approach to intelligence gathering that focuses on the human element. My name is Richard Davy. I'm a red team lead at the Home Depot. My focus is in social engineering, physical penetration testing, and open source intelligence. In this talk, we'll briefly cover what social engineering is, what SE attacks benefit from open source intelligence and personality-based open source intelligence, what open source intelligence is, why we would gather it, where we might get it, and the importance it plays in social engineering engagements and red teaming engagements. And then we'll cover what personality-based open source intelligence is, where we might find it, and why we might be looking for it. So first, what is social engineering? Well, Michael Tyler says in his book Brain Hacking that at its core, social engineering is the building and leveraging of influence in order to persuade others to act as you want them to. Or put another way, to get someone to make a decision that benefits you. Now, I like this definition as it relates to social engineering engagements or red teaming engagements. But when I social engineer my best friend into telling me about their plans or whereabouts for their birthday so that I can throw them a surprise party, that doesn't benefit me. Or if I'm social engineering my teenager into telling me where they're actually going to be on Saturday night so that I can make sure that they're safe or not getting into trouble, that benefits them. Sure, it helps my peace of mind, but ultimately, it benefits them. But when I social engineer my boss into giving me a pay raise or an extra week of paid vacation, that benefits me. If I'm performing a social engineering engagement where I social engineer someone into letting me into a building or clicking a malicious link in a phishing email, that obviously doesn't benefit them. It benefits me. So, social engineering is the building and leveraging of influence in order to persuade others to act in a manner that is for yours or their own best interest. The practice of influencing or persuading an individual into taking some action based on some input. So what social engineering attacks benefit from the use of open source intelligence or personality-based open source intelligence? Well, first we have phishing. We have to know the email, and then if we perform a spear phishing attack, we're going to need to know a little bit of information to make that look legitimate. And then vishing, which is voice phishing. I'm going to call you up, but first I have to have your phone number, and I have to know what I need to talk about or who I need to be when I call you. Then smishing, I have to have a phone number again, and then I need to know what kind of text message it is that I need to send to have you interact with it. We have impersonation, which it requires a decent amount of open source intelligence. I need to know where the office is. I need to know who I need to be when I show up and what I need to be talking about or wearing or how I should approach. And then we have prepending. If you don't know what prepending is, basically this is the act of tagging someone on social media to gain more interaction. Well, first you have to know their social media handle, and then you have to know the topics that they're talking about and what it is that they're interested in so that you can engage them and build that interaction. So what is open source intelligence? Well, from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, it is intelligence produced from publicly available information that is collected, exploited, and disseminated in a timely manner to an appropriate audience for the purpose of addressing a specific intelligence requirement. The focus here is that it's intelligence produced from publicly available information. We're gaining this information from public resources, open social media. We're not going and stealing it from a computer or a file cabinet. In today's world, a large portion of that data can be collected online, but OSINT predates the internet, so it was previously collected from newspapers, physical bulletin boards, magazines, and still can be today. So why might we be performing an OSINT exercise? Well, attackers and offensive security researchers alike are looking for pieces of intelligence that make targeting a business or an individual easier. Attackers for malicious purposes and offensive security researchers to educate companies and individuals on what might make them vulnerable, such as social media sites that are leaking usernames or leaking sensitive company information, or maybe they're leaking details of office spaces or computer systems, maybe in pictures, or news that details recent developments or if the company's doing well or poorly, or have they been breached, or do they announce technological advances. And then the people, the individuals in the company, the team, the structures, the culture, what that might look like. These are just a few things that an attacker or an offensive security researcher may be looking for to make them sound a little bit more legitimate, which is why this is important. We want to sound legitimate when we are approaching a company for the purposes of social engineering or red teaming. We want to drill down on our target acquisition. Who am I targeting? What am I going to target? So I'm not all over the place and just acting sporadically. I need to know the language, what phrases or words or technological details should I know or speak about. The location, where am I going? What am I looking for when I get there? Especially if I'm going to perform an impersonation attack. The vendors, who can I be to get in the building? Or if I'm going to send a package from a vendor, who does it need to come from? The people, who works there, how long have they been there? Who do they talk to outside of work or at work, or who are they close to that they work with? These are all valuable pieces of intelligence that get me closer to my goal of appearing legitimate. As security personnel, if something looks as if it doesn't belong, it's probably wrong. Attackers and offensive security researchers want to appear as legitimate as possible to keep suspicions low and prevent an incident. So, what first? Right? When I first start an open source intelligence exercise, what do I do first? Well, first I set some goals. Why do I need the intelligence in the first place? The next is scope. Who's off limits? Who's not? What facilities or assets are off limits? And what SE attacks are allowed and which ones are not? Because that might actually determine the type of intelligence I seek and the depth at which I choose to seek it. Because if I'm performing generic phishing, I only need email addresses. If I'm performing spear phishing, I need a little bit more information. And if I'm impersonating someone that should be there, I'm going to need a lot of information. The next thing I need to do is identify the gaps I have in intelligence. So we do a brief gap analysis. What do I know today? The company name, hopefully, maybe some people inside the company. Versus what do I need to know? Where the company is located, who their vendors are, phone numbers, email addresses, etc. So once I've gotten my goals and I've defined scope and I've done a brief gap analysis, now I can look at the where. Where am I going to get the information that I'm seeking? So we can look at social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, MySpace. I think it still exists. We can look at visco.co or radio.fm, or maybe we could go and look at Foursquare. Professional social media such as LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great place to get information about a company and the individuals that work at the company, their specific roles or responsibilities, the tools that they use. Company job recs are posted on LinkedIn that detail what the company is looking for because of specific software tools that they have internally. We could go to blogs and community platforms, online databases, search engine manipulation such as Google Dorks. We'd also look at public hearings and SEC filings, or professional and academic publications, academic papers. All of these are great places to find information. What we're doing is we're approaching these public forums and locations in a methodical format so that we can gain strategic pieces of intelligence to answer specific questions. So we've defined our goals, our scope, what SE attacks we can perform. We've done a brief gap analysis. We know what we need to know, and we know what we already know. We know where we're going to find that information. So now we get to do some intelligence gathering. We head over to Google, we start digging, we find social media details, company profiles, job recs, news articles. What does it look like? This is xyzcorp. They specialize in sales and marketing. We located several high-value targets, including their CEO, Joey Bates, their CFO, Mark Asenza, head of operations, head of security, Jack Ryan. Don't mess with that guy. Their internal teams include IT, finance, and marketing. Inside of IT, they have a team working on a custom CRM and ERP software so they can get away from Salesforce and SAP. They have custom HR software written in C# and then custom databasing tools written in Java. They recently partnered with AWS to migrate all of their internal microservice infrastructure to the cloud. Currently, they're looking for SAP engineers and experienced Salesforce users until their custom tooling is complete. They have several associates who attend a company get-together at a local bar and grill on Friday after work. They have a company Reddit and Facebook and Twitter page that have no restrictions, allowing anybody on the internet to see them. And then their marketing department has a public Instagram page where they like to share pictures of their calendars detailing holidays and birthdays and days off, pictures of their desks and their office spaces, and then pictures of their associates wearing their RFID security badges and their corporate polos. On that Instagram page, we were able to find Grant. Grant Hofstad is a project manager. He's been at the company for a year, so he probably doesn't know what information he should be releasing and what information he shouldn't be releasing. He reports to a senior manager named Sean Delaney. Sean is out of office on vacation for the next 2 weeks, according to the marketing department's leaked calendar on Instagram. This gives us a way that we can spearfish Grant. Grant has 3 direct reports, all of who have been at XYZ longer than he has. He uses a well-known project management tool called Smartsheets, you may have heard of it, and keeps a personal board of work tasks on Trello that he forgot to make private. He has 2 social media handles that we found, Grant Hoff Rocks -bang bang and DeHoffinator. He leaked his corporate username format on Reddit when asking questions about specific tools used internally, g.m.hofstad, and his company email, g.m.hofstad@emp.xyzcorp.com. So we have really good intelligence here, chunks of information that could potentially lead to a compromise, or at the very least give us enough information to build a pretext that could lead to compromise. So what did I miss? Here's the deal. This is a great stopping point. We answered all of our intelligence requirements. We were able to successfully close the gap between what we knew and what we didn't know. Many successful social engineering engagements and red team operations have been run from this level of OSINT. So honestly, nothing. We could stop here. But what if I told you that you could go a little deeper down the rabbit hole and the payoff may be an increase in successful social engineering pretext execution, or at the very least, a better understanding of the people that you're dealing with on the other end? To do so, we answer some basic questions. Starting with, who is my target? What does my target want me to think about them? How do they want to be treated? What do they desire or need? What are their likes or dislikes? How do they view themselves and others? Ultimately, I want to know who my target is and how I should approach them. So how do I find that information? Well, PERSINT. Personality-based open source intelligence is open source information that you would gather by studying and understanding a person's social media or their professional social media, blog posts and professional articles, or even the way that they comment or remark on other people's posts and articles. The purpose is to build an idea of the type of pretext you may use to engage them. If I wanted to engage a target at a coffee shop, how should I talk to do that? What should I say? What topic should I focus on? This isn't what they do or when they do it or even how they do it. This is who they are when they do it. So what? You might actually be thinking, so what? Why do I need this? Phishing emails have very little to no emotion associated with them. I can play on fear of missing out or authority or maybe even fear of loss. I can impersonate a vendor without this information. Why do I need this? So 2 things, in my opinion, humble opinion as it is. The first, success. The ability to successfully approach a target or bump a target from a few steps away and get their attention, captivate their interest, and get them involved. We want them to interact. We want them to talk. How do we do that? The second, we're not the bad guys. At the end of the engagement or the interaction, when the target finds out that they were indeed a target, they need to remember that you did not leave them feeling horrible. We should always leave them feeling better for having met us. We do this by helping them feel more connected. We're like them, we speak like them, we have similar interests. There was a scientific paper titled Highlighting Relatedness Promotes Pro-Social Motives and Behaviors. In it, researchers noted that when giving tasks, if they highlighted relatedness, the result was higher interest in volunteering and intentions to volunteer. Additionally, they found that when participants wrote about relatedness experiences, that action alone promoted feelings of connectedness to others. When we find that others are like us, we want to be around them more. It gives us a sense of being a part of a group or a tribe and helps us feel more connected to the person. The next thing is our target should feel accepted. We as humans have an innate requirement to be socially accepted for who we are. In the paper The Need to Belong, Roy Baumeister and Mark Leary stated in their conclusions, we found evidence of basic desire to form social attachments. People form social bonds readily, even under seemingly adverse conditions. People who have anything in common, who shared common, even unpleasant experiences, or who simply are exposed to each other frequently, tend to form friendships or other attachments. They go on to say that forming or solidifying social attachments generally produces positive emotions, whereas real, imagined, or even potential threats to social bonds generate a variety of unpleasant emotions. Next, our target should feel appreciated for their points of view, their uniqueness, thoughts, and opinions that they have. Feeling appreciated makes us feel more connected and deepens our sense of purpose or meaning in life. And then lastly, we're there to make them feel heard. Give them permission to speak. It's a weird statement, I know, so let me explain. Nothing feels worse than trying to talk to someone who is looking at their phone or doesn't seem to be interested in what we're saying. It literally makes us feel as if we should just stop talking, take our thoughts, and go elsewhere. Why? Because we love being heard. We love being listened to. We speak about ourselves and our desires and our needs in the hopes that someone will listen. So actively listening and engaging the target because you have an idea of who they are and what they need can literally open the conversation and offer them a platform to be heard on. So we know why we should be doing this. Where do we look? Social media sites, professional social media sites, blogs, personal web pages, professional web pages. It's not really any different than the tools we're already using for OSINT. The approach is different. What we're looking for is different. Sam Gosling, a professor of psychology, spent years snooping through people's things. Knowingly, I think. To discover what their personal space tells us about the big 5 ocean personality traits. Openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And he said this in regard to snooping people's personal websites. Websites are extraordinarily, to include social media, good places to learn about people, perhaps the best of all places. Our site snooping yielded information that was at least as accurate as what we learned from the bedrooms, offices, and music collections we studied, and accurate across a much broader array of personality variables than most other domains. He goes on to say that websites proved useful for learning about all 5 traits. So in this nice blurry graph here, you can see that websites offered as accurate, if not more accurate information than the bedroom did in all 5 traits. It offered more information than the office and more information than the music top 10. Now, I want to point out that these are places we spend a large amount of time. Our bedroom, it's where we feel comfortable. This is how we are comfortable. Our bedroom is set up in a manner that suits us. Our office, we spend 7 to 9 hours. In the COVID world, we spend 10 to 12 hours. And it's in our home. And websites and social media sites offer as much or as accurate of information. And what's even better is in today's world with selfies and pictures and the rate at which we take pictures because we have a camera in our pocket at all times, personal blogs, websites, social media can also give us insight into bedrooms and offices that we didn't have before. You can't just break into an office. That's not open source intelligence. But when it's open source intelligence because it's on social media, it's open source intelligence. The bedroom. You can get an idea of how they act or how they're comfortable or who they are from their bedroom. And they probably have pictures of it on social media. So, what are we looking for when we're perusing their social media trying to get an idea of who our target is? Language. How do they talk about themselves, about others, about life or work or current topics? The pictures. Who's in them? Where are they at? And then their interactions. How do they interact with people? How do they respond? You've probably heard the saying, words create worlds. So in focusing on language, we really want to focus on the words, how they're put together. How do they speak? Do they reference themselves a lot? Do they speak about their teams? Those outside of their circles? Why is that important? It gives us an idea of how they view the world and themselves in it. People who speak about themselves a lot may be self-involved or more concerned with how they fit into the bigger picture. So approaching them with verbiage that focuses on teams or their groups or their families, you're probably alienating them and they're going to stop listening. People who speak about the team or the group or their clubs or their affiliations may be more interested in how the team or the group or club is viewed overall. So pitching an idea or discussing at length their individual accomplishments or achievements or individual goals or ideas may alienate them and ultimately leave them feeling as if you're not listening. If they're self-focused, you might hear things like I, me, my, what I have, what I've done, what I'm doing, this affects me, or this is mine. You may see this in their actual written language on their social media sites. Team-focused language might look like we are all working really hard here, or our success is really a team effort, or so-and-so and I. They're always referencing their group of people or their relationships as opposed to themselves. Outside verbiage may be things like that group or those guys or that company, anything that's not directly referenced to them or the people that they directly associate with. Another thing that we could look at is the Satter communication types. So Virginia Satter in the 1970s came up with these communication types, and there are 5 of them. We have the blamer, always finding fault, never accepting responsibility, always blaming someone else, or the placater, who's always out to please or never asserting or disagreeing and always seeking approval. The computer personality or communication type, very correct and proper with no emotion or maybe masking or feeling vulnerable but trying to cover it up. And then the distractor, seeking attention to compensate for loneliness or inadequacy or whatever it may be. So they're always telling these big, bold stories, or they're always blaming or yelling or creating disruption. And then the leveler, usually assertive, with the goal of mutual problem solving. They don't mask their emotions. They're very comfortable with who they are. These details alone might help us better associate with the target. If it's always someone else's problem, you can be that person, relate to that with the target. Maybe they need attention. Can you provide that? What type of attention are they looking for? Maybe they placate, and getting them to fulfill a request wouldn't take very much effort once a connection has been established. Next is how much or what are they saying? Are they super chatty or don't say a lot at all? Do they use abstract language or very direct and concrete language? It's literally the differences in extroversion and introversion. In a research article titled When Feelings Speak, Camille Bukaboom, I think that's how you pronounce the name, and a group of researchers discovered interesting notes on distinguishability between extroverts and introverts' language, finding that extroverts, when describing what they see in photographs, tend to use more abstract language, while introverts appeared to be a lot more specific about what they saw. Jordan Peterson and Jacob Hirsch from the University of Toronto asked students to write about past experiences and future goals. In the written language, they discovered that the more liberal a person was, the more words they used pertaining to senses. The more neurotic, the more they referred to the emotional angst of the situation. And the more conscientious, the more language centered around achievements and work-related phrases and terms. Another study, Tell Me a Story and I Will Tell You Who You Are, took 100 students and a group of German researchers led by Albrecht Kufner, gave the students 5 words as prompts: plane crash, parlor-made fireworks, Middle Ages, and supermarket, to write a creative story. They found 2 things. First, Open-minded participants produced more creative stories, and the more agreeable participants created stories with a higher social vibe to them. The second thing they observed was that when having a second set of participants judge the traits of the authors, they were fairly accurate in doing so. And the last study I'll cover here is Tal Yarkoni in his paper, Personality in 100,000 Words, researched and analyzed 694 blogs over the course of about 2 years. The group of individual bloggers was on average predominantly female with an average age of 36. He then compared this reading to answers given in a personality questionnaire by the authors. What he found was that contrary to the belief that we get to tell people what we want them to believe on the internet, the choice of words by the author consistently alluded to their personality types. More neurotic people used more words associated with negative emotions, and more extroverted people used more words pertaining to positive emotions. Those scoring high in agreeableness would avoid swear words and use more words related to communality. And the conscientious blogger, again, mentioned achievements and wrote in terms of works accomplished. All things that tell us about this person we can gather from the words that they're putting out on their social media. James Pennebaker says this: who would have ever predicted that a high school student who uses too many verbs in her college admissions essay is likely to make lower grades in college? Or that a poet who overuses the word I in his poetry is at a higher risk of suicide? He goes on to say that by looking more carefully at the ways people convey their thoughts in language, we can begin to get a sense of their personalities, emotions, and connections with others. Having that insight to understand someone's emotions or their personalities can be the difference in connecting and not connecting. Next, what do you see in their pictures? Are they celebrating or partying? Maybe they just like to have fun. Are their pictures dark, hoodie hood covering the face, or are they creating barriers even in their images, maybe with a pillow or a person because they're uncomfortable? What does that say about them? Maybe they only want you to think they want to be left alone. There are several groups and cliques that exist in the world today that resonate with that style of interaction, and just like all humans who need to connect with someone, this is a statement to connect. What does the body language represent? Are smiles fake? If the target is at an event where they're semi-unaware of the photos that are being taken, how do they look? Are they enjoying themselves? What do their selfies say about them? Remember, selfies, unlike the embarrassing photo your friend posted of you from that crazy night at the bar, are user approved. The message in the image is exactly what the target individual wants you to think about them. They're, after all, the messenger, the creator, and the owner of the portrait, and very rarely do we put a selfie on the internet with the intent of generating a negative response. This is a person seeking a personal, positive response. What are some taglines that we've seen in selfies? Maybe they're approval seeking with a caption like, "Ugh, one of my photos always looks so horrible." Or, "I'm always such a mess. Wish I was more put together." Maybe they're taking selfies with their new car or their new clothes or their new accessories because they want you to think that they're successful or fashionable. That may be something you could build a conversation off of. "Hey, that's a really nice watch. Where did you get that?" If that's the response they're looking for, they're going to engage. Most of our images, when approved by us and posted by us, are meant to affirm something for us. Whether we're a good person with good intentions or fashionable or successful, this gives us an idea of who that person wants to be seen as. In some cases, they're actually posted so that others will make those affirmations for us, to make us feel better. The added benefit is that we don't have to stroke our own ego, somebody does it for us. Next, where are they? In a paper titled Personality Place Transactions, Sandra Matz and Gabriella Harari commented this: researchers found that places can draw out certain aspects of people's personalities. Their data also showed that people with certain personality traits are drawn to certain places. For example, people who tend to be more extroverted, a trait that reflects how sociable a person is, spent more time in public places compared to more introverted people. The findings also show that spending time in a particular place predicts people's momentary personality states and their short-term trait expressions over time. For example, people reported feeling more extroverted in the moments when spending time at bars or parties, cafes or restaurants, or friends' houses compared with when at home. So if we relate this back to the group of people who go out on Friday night to the work gathering for xyzcorp, we may have some introverts online that are more extroverted at the bar. We can use that. And then lastly, who? Are they alone? Maybe they're self-involved, or maybe they prefer being alone and having social interaction at a distance, which we'll cover in just a few minutes. Do they prefer pictures with friends or groups of friends? Does this accurately portray their personality when compared to their words and language? Yes, we have to do a little bit of comparison to get a full idea. Is there a lack of images? Not because they don't interact on social media, but maybe because they prefer to experience life rather than document it. All these things are discoverable in the imagery on a social media site or a website or a blog, or even in the lack of imagery. We just have to be looking for it. And Still says that selfies help people portray a version of themselves to the world. This is a statement that says, "Look at me, this is who I am." She goes on to say that in real life, people are constantly trying to stand out, whether it is by what they say or the clothes that they wear. And the selfie is no different. It's a statement to the world. It allows people to stand out among the masses. So then lastly is interactions. How does the target handle conflict? Do they rant? How do they communicate overall? In her article, The Psychology Behind Social Media Interactions, Liraz Margalit, a customer experience psychologist, points out a few things about our online behavior. The most important one to me was this. Studies have found that day-to-day interactions are based almost entirely on nonverbal communication. When we interact with others, we continuously process wordless signals like facial expressions, tone of voice, gestures, body language, eye contact, and even the physical distance between us and the other person. And you might be thinking, I knew that. But she goes on to say this. People in online interactions are much more casual because they do not have to be attentive to each other's signals. Verbal and symbolic feedback is not immediate, so there's no need to be constantly aware of the other person's responses. To me, that's important because it says that in online settings, we have the ability to communicate without the direction, interruption, or even the social guidance of others being in our way. We can act and react and interact the way that we truly see fit. In some cases, removing the world's influence on our personal behavior. That allows us to express a stronger sense of who we are to the core and allow that to shine through. Liraz finalizes the article by saying this. Interactions via social media make visitors feel connected without the difficulties and complexities of face-to-face interaction. Now remember what I said about the images. If they're always alone in the picture, maybe they value interaction, but they don't have to deal with the difficulties and complexities of actually engaging you face-to-face. That's an important personality trait that we need to be looking for. Next is excitement. What excites the target? What makes them eager to talk? In a positive or negative light, being angry is just excitement, just in a negative direction. Do they like to drone on about subjects that excite them? Do they like to rant about things that anger them? If so, can we use that? And then finally, emotion. How do they react to emotional posts? Whether it be positive or negative, sad or happy. What emotions are portrayed in their imagery, their words? This isn't an exact or accurate science, but we can get a sense of what makes them tick by reading and studying the ways in which they communicate with others on social media, and even how they want their onlookers to see them through that communication. Maybe they want to appear as an empathetic person. Maybe they want to be seen as emotionally connected or intelligent or knowledgeable or helpful. Maybe they want to be seen as the purveyor of political and economical knowledge. Maybe they like being known as the person who doesn't take anything from anybody. Those are all important things that we can pick up through their interactions, their imagery, and their language. So we know why we should do this, but why is it important to our social engineering engagements? Well, elicitation, influence, persuasion techniques, all of those things that you use in a social engineering engagement, they become much easier to use when you better understand the target's needs, wants, and desires. And while it isn't always going to provide the fullest and most accurate picture of the target, we can at least begin to understand them. With an understanding of personalities, likes, dislikes, and interactions, we can build a more effective pretext. And as we become more effective at identifying, engaging, and connecting with our targets in a more efficient manner, we have the opportunity to first understand a bit about who they are and how they want to be seen, and a little bit about how they want to be treated, and then build an effective pretext or an effective engagement off of that. Overall, we can build that advanced communication profile that we're looking for based on the information discovered during PERSINT, and have an upper hand when it comes to engaging the person of interest, raising our chances at a successful engagement. So here we are. We know what we're looking for. We know who we're looking at. And now we've asked these basic questions, and we're going to start digging. So we dig in. We scroll through Facebook and Instagram. We understand the pictures and the personality. What does it look like? Meet Grant. He's an open guy. He's confident and sure of himself. He accepts the consequences of his own actions. He takes ownership. He looks to resolve conflict and issues quickly. He loves going out and meeting new people, but finds comfort in the quietness of his own home. He's an animal lover. His dog recently passed away, so he loves sitting at the dog park on Sundays to watch other dogs play. It makes him feel better. He's a member of the local country club and a running club, and enjoys getting together with his local conservationist group. He loves to rant about his job when angered. He would tell you all about the company process and how horrible it is. He uses phrases like my team, the guys, my group, relationships. He only takes a selfie if friends are in it. He has a personal blog where he likes to talk about the amazing experiences he has when he's traveling the world and things he's learned from his new job. His pictures show that he's kind of messy and doesn't value organization. Leads to believing that he's a bit open. He's a visual communicator. He uses phrases like, I see what's going on here, or imagine this. He loves to be helpful, sometimes to his own detriment. He likes to show others that he's in control and really knows what's going on. It makes him feel better as a person, and he wants to share that with the world. This information gives you insight into who Grant is. Not just what he does or how he does it, but who he is when he does it. We could most certainly use this to get an idea of how we should approach him. This individualized information gives us an idea of how to connect with Grant and gain further information, or at the very least, gain interaction. I'll leave you with this because this is one of the most common questions that I get about any SE technique, and that's how do you practice it? Well, like any other SE technique or OSINT technique or tactic, it does require practice, and you can practice in almost any setting. You have friends with social media. Take a scroll. See if your ideas of their personality line up with what you find. When you're around them, listen. See if you can pick up on the social cues that you've seen in their online interactions. Matthew Lieberman, in his book Social, Why Our Brains Are Wired to Connect, says this: to the extent that we can characterize evolution as designing our modern brains. This is what our brains were wired for. Reaching out and interacting with others. These social adaptations are central to making us the most successful species on Earth. And with that, I'll take questions.